Hey everyone, what's going on and what are you experiencing right now in Victoria real estate? Because what I'm seeing out there is two diverging markets, two completely separate worlds almost, and depending on which one you're in, it's going to dictate if you're having a good time in real estate or if it feels like buying or selling a home is an absolute uphill battle. On one hand, we've got multiple offers and homes selling unconditionally or over asking price within a matter of days, and a lot of disappointed buyers feeling like their dream homes are getting further and further out of reach. For example, a home in Fairfield just sold $400,000 over asking price. This is kind of an extreme example, but there's been dozens of other homes over the last few days and weeks selling over ask and extremely quickly. On the other hand, we have condo buildings on Bear Mountain with 23 units for sale, just sitting there and gathering dust, tons of price drops, collapsed offers, and extremely picky buyers who will negotiate and try and grind the seller down every step of the way during condition removal. These two different experiences is all reflected in the daily MLS numbers that I've been watching over the past few weeks, and I've seen just as many price drops as pending sales each day. So why are some segments doing so well and others collapsing back to 2019 prices? One of the challenges in making these videos is trying to separate what my experience day to day is working as a realtor, talking to people, and working with clients, and what the actual stats are saying. Victoria's real estate market is a culmination of many small micro segments, and that's why I think personal experience is more important here than stats. Unlike, say, condo markets in Toronto or Vancouver, where you have 5,000 cookie cutter condos a month selling, and you can just look at a spreadsheet and get a pretty good idea of what's happening just from that snapshot. Personally, I think it's super interesting to compare Victoria to other markets in Canada. Toronto home prices, for example, are down 5% on average since this time last year, and Vancouver is down about 7%. Victoria, on the other hand, continues to see price increases on detached homes, and condos are pretty much flat for the year. Do these stats mean that much since it's so dependent on the neighborhood and the type of individual home you're buying? But there is some value just to compare the market as a whole to other markets in Canada. And when we do that, we can see that Victoria overall is doing extremely well right now. Here's a few observations that I think will maybe shed some light on what's happening. We're going to start off by talking about inventory. So a lot of buyers who maybe overpaid a bit in 2020 to 2023 and are now trying to sell, they're struggling to get their money back. There's a lot of homes from this time listed and not selling, which I think is a big portion of all this inventory we're seeing. We have 13% more homes than this time last year, and you have to go way back to 2015 to see this many new listings. And these sellers that I mentioned who are trying to resell after only a few years of ownership make up a big section of this inventory. You can't really blame someone who bought a condo in 2022 for trying to sell at least at a break-even price, but most of the time they're looking at a loss of at least 5 to 10%. But when you add in the realtor fees, the property transfer tax that they paid, it's going to be a lot higher than that. And sometimes that's why they price higher, is to try and recoup these fees, but that's just not happening, and all this inventory is just stacking up and sitting there. On the flip side though, the homes that are selling fastest likely were not listed at all in the last 5-10 years. These are people who've got a good amount of equity. Maybe they've owned these homes for 15, 20, 30 years, and because of that, they can price more realistically and aggressively, and it's paying off because they're selling fast. There's also a reason why they like living in the home for so long. The best homes, the family homes perhaps, on quiet streets, or if it's a condo, its top floor is a corner unit with a beautiful ocean view, they just don't change hands as much. Look at the property history of the property you're buying. If you see it's bought and sold every 2 or 3 years, maybe that's a red flag that people just don't like living there that much. I've walked into lots of homes that are like time capsules from 30 or 40 years ago without a single update done, which just doesn't work in this market. Maybe in Gordon Head or Oak Bay, you can get away with it, but most parts of town, you need to make it move-in ready if you want to see some action there. If you're selling a rental property, there's not much point unless the rents are close to market value or better yet, vacant. Buyers and investors just don't really have an appetite to want to deal with a tenanted property in this kind of slow, strange market with all the new tenancy laws sort of piled on top of that as well. The luxury market is doing extremely well. If we look at home sales over $2 million for the year, it's almost double what we had in 2023 or 2024 so far. Going up a notch, there's been 7 sales over $4 million compared to only 3 last year. There's lots of money out there in Victoria. With the down payment limit moved up and talk of some GST exemptions being raised, that $1 to $1.5 million range is also doing extremely well. There's some early signs that tourism and perhaps interprovincial migration is booming. The US is no longer as a desirable place for snowbirds. So even if a handful of those buyers enter our market, it's going to have an impact. Because of that, I'm seeing strong sales in areas like Vic West, Songhees, and Sydney. These areas appeal to retirees, the quiet lifestyle, and quite a few people like to have a second home in these areas. So if you're a buyer and you want a really nice turnkey home, you're going to be competing. If you're a bit more patient and you want to sift through the bargain bin of overpriced homes, stale listings, and time capsules, you might get a good price if you're willing to throw out a few low offers and just wait a little bit. If you're a seller, price realistically. The first buyer through the door is likely the most interested, and you really want to capitalize on that. And the best way to do that is have an attractive price, and that creates a sense of urgency, and you can capture that buyer. I think it's got to be a really frustrating time right now for anyone who maybe owns a condo and is trying to climb the property ladder into a detached home. The division between homeowners and renters is widening, and so is the division between condo owners and detached homeowners. You're getting less money for your condo, it's taking longer to sell, plus you're competing with this influx of money and wealthy buyers. It's a tough spot to be in. Also, first-time home buyers are feeling the pinch. It's tough for people entering the market to get that down payment saved when you have the cost of living so high and everything is just so expensive right now. With the Liberal government elected again, they've made a lot of promises to first-time buyers and a lot of promises around housing affordability. But when you have 80% of the people competing for 20% of the best homes, I just don't see how you're going to correct that with regulation or how you're going to correct that even by building more homes. People want these homes in the best neighborhoods. The new stuff just doesn't seem as attractive. So time will tell, but I can't really see this getting any better for these segments. Overall, though, I think Victoria is performing extremely well compared to the rest of Canada, and it doesn't look like anything is slowing down the growth that the city is having. What do you think? Please let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching.